delicate situation, and one of the delicate situation is the situation of that is related to the relationship between the husband and wife. As you know, the Quran and this Islam has to deal with every detail. Now, again, like this particular situation about the issue between the wife and husband, of course they take all that out and they tell you, okay, the Quran allow the beating of the wife. Absolutely not. This is, if that is the case, why the Quran, why the Prophet ﷺ never lay his hand on anybody? Never lay his hand on a wife. If he's the example of our example, then he should be going out, practicing the Quran. He was a walking Quran. Did he beat any of his wife? Did he beat any child? Did he beat anybody? So, like this particular case is a very delicate case in a very specific situation that is taking out of context about something really serious about between the husband and wife, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deal with it. And He shows how to deal with the situation. It doesn't give permission to any husband to beat his wife. Absolutely not. Whoever interpreted these verses that way, they know nothing about the interpretation. It's just a matter of a way to attack the Quran. So again, I refuse to be on the defensive on this one, and I don't want to talk in front of little kids about certain issues that is, related to the relationship between husband and wife. But I can guarantee you, if this was the case, then Prophet Muhammad, why didn't he ever beat anybody? This is really. But the second part is absolutely true. We are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even if you dislike something about your spouse, Allah will bring the best out of it. Absolutely. The Prophet said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِ. This is the golden rule. If you are really good, you will be the best to your spouse. That means, both parties. You will be the best to your spouse. And that is the rule. As a Muslim, you must live by. You must live by that rule. If you are a really good person, you will be best to your spouse. And then know that Prophet Muhammad was the best to his spouse.
I agree with what Brother Shakir has said. I just want to emphasize the taking Quran out of context. If you look at Surah An-Nisa, it says there, and it goes through the steps of how you can correct behaviors with your wife. And it says it very clearly. But if you read all of the ayat before it, and all of the ayat after that, it talks about how merciful the relationship is between a husband and a wife. And that makes it even more important for us to not just pick one ayat. That's not the way the Quran works. We have to understand it fully. And then if you go further into the tafsir of what it's saying there, he's not talking about physical abuse. He's not talking about that at all. And the Prophet ﷺ, there's numerous hadith that give us more guidelines on that. But I will go along with what Brother Shakir said in the sense that we're not going to dig into too much detail, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we can't just pick one ayah and hang on to it. We have to look at the explanations before it and after it in order to put the full context there. And a lot of times when you look at literature, or when people approach you as, you're a Muslim, your Quran says this. Yeah, okay, but read right before that. It's like that in any book that we read. You can't just take a paragraph out of a book and go, okay, that's the answer. No, it's not. Read the explanations before it or after it to have a full context. And that's something we need to, one, practice ourselves. But the other thing is that we need to also emphasize that point too. Is that, okay, I'm so happy that you read that ayah of the Quran. Now, can you tell me what was right before that? No, because they didn't read it. So you need to make that, be the smarter one and bring that point up, that there isn't anything like that. And overemphasize the fact too, that the Prophet ﷺ was the best of husbands in his treatment of his wives. And we don't have that example. And if we do have anything like that happening, that's a person's fault, and possibly a sickness, depends on where that goes. That's the other brother's area to answer. But subhanAllah, don't let people take Quran out of context. And we shouldn't do that ourselves too, inshallah.
By the way, if I have 11 wives, I'll beat up myself. By the way, brothers and sisters, the Quran said that if somebody has a fight with his wife that he cannot fix, okay, he should first advise his wife nicely, repeatedly, and if that fails, then he can choose to go and sleep in another room. Okay, and if that fails, then the Quran said, "Udrubuhunna," and the Fuqaha said it's without leaving a mark with a siwak. You know siwak? That's like a stick that you clean your it's like a pen, you know. So, you know, that's just like a reminder. You know, like I'm really upset with you, and I've been trying to tell you, you know, but. And Rasulullah ﷺ to tell you, despite the fact that he has 11 wives, imagine how stressful his situation was. He never had to hit a wife.
By the way, I'm getting a lot of text messages here. I don't think we'll be able to cover those unless we want to stay here all night. Saudi Arabia does not allow women to drive or work or do pretty much anything. Is that the correct interpretation of Sharia law? Brother Sarfraz and Brother Hassan, 2 minutes each.
When I sat down and I discussed this question with my teacher, we were talking about, first of all, when you look at Saudi Arabia, and this is kind of off topic, but if you look at Saudi Arabia, the way they live, the way they spend their money, the things that you hear about them doing in the news, like the princes coming here to Vegas and gambling and stuff, I mean, they're not living an Islamic lifestyle anyway. So, I mean, when you talk about Sharia law, I was kind of like, that really doesn't, there's not even any Islam going on, so forget about the law. But when you look at letting your women drive out in the cars by themselves, going out in places by themselves, really, I mean, I don't want to say that we're inhibiting women from doing anything. Obviously, if it's safe, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But it does make sense as to why you wouldn't do something like that. Because when a woman goes out, from day one, men are taking advantage of other men and women. And, I mean, sometimes women take advantage of men too, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that it is dangerous. It could be dangerous. And we should want to protect our women, and with that being the case, I think the right thing to do in a lot of times is have some supervision with the woman, and not in a sexist way or, you know, an equality way. It's just simply there should be somebody there. I mean, even when I was a kid, my little brothers would go to the restroom, I'd send one of my other brothers with them to go to the restroom with them, where I'd go myself. It's just common sense. So when you have a woman who could easily be, taken advantage of, you should put measures in. You should put measures in. Who's the other?
I would be very brief. Everything which Saudi Arabia does, that does not mean it's all religious and by Sharia. Islam has very clear orders. Yeah, women can drive, yes, they can drive. Can they do a lot of things? Yes. They cannot go farther according to one hadith, 1 day and night alone, and according to the second one, 3 days and 3 nights. So once you read what people say, basically it may depend upon the situation. However, there's one thing very clear which we need to know. Islam prefers women to stay at their homes. That's a rule of thumb. The second thing is, as a physician, many situations I treat a lot of things, and one thing which I commonly treat is post-traumatic stress disorder, which is women who are raped. And unfortunately, whenever I try to take a good history, they say, we went to visit somebody overnight. We stayed, we were raped. And this is such a common and unfortunate thing that I was telling my wife that my daughters are not ever going to go and sleep anyone's house. So basically, one thing which has been made clear to us, protect them, but that does not mean that everything which Saudi Arabia is doing is correct by Sharia, particularly driving, but I'm not criticizing them. I'm just trying to answer something.
If you have intentions of marrying someone in the future, are you allowed to be with them in public places with a group of friends if there is no physical contact? Brother Hassan and Brother Shakir, 2 minutes.
Like from my understanding, it's supposed to be okay. So I don't really know what else.
I say so.
I mean, yeah, I just really want to know. I mean, yeah, no, I think that Yeah, I mean, I just think it makes sense that this question. Okay. To be serious then for 2 seconds then. I mean, according to what I said earlier, I mean, eventually you are going to have to, you know, I mean, earlier when I was like, if you have no intention of marrying this person, you shouldn't be casually dating. If you're 15 years old, don't tell me you're like, oh, I'm intending on marrying this girl, and so I'm gonna casually date this girl. Like, I don't think that that's right. But if you are at the right age and you are in the right circumstances to potentially be getting married, then if you're hanging out with somebody in a public place trying to get to know them, then I don't see a problem with that.
If a woman adopts a girl and breastfeeds her, does she become mahram for her other kids and husband? If she doesn't breastfeed her, will she always be non-mahram for other family members, sister Wafa and brother Shakir? 3 minutes each.
In the case of the breastfeeding, absolutely. The breastfeeding will lead to being like brothers and sisters out of breastfeeding. But if she doesn't breastfeed, then yes, they will not be mahram for the girl. In that case, so they will be foreign to her. So she'll have to wear hijab and all that deal.
Yes, just wanted to clarify on breastfeeding. There are some stories where you hear women saying, no, this is her brother or this is their sister by nursing, and they just gave him a spoon of milk from them. That doesn't qualify. In Islam, it's 5 times of nursing that child and under the age of 2. And then they qualify.
But I think a question like this, they can go this needs.
By the way, when you are like a son or a daughter to somebody by nursing, you don't get inheritance. You become a mahram, but you don't get inheritance.
Very quickly, I want someone to ask, because in some situations 2 years, some situations 2.5 years, and the amount of milk is different too. So make sure you convert, consult
I will appreciate if we only answer our own questions.
Yeah.
We don't have much time. Killing one person is like killing whole humanity. Killing someone is haram. Our Prophet did jihad for spreading Islam. Why those killings were not haram? If it is justified, then is it okay to do jihad now to spread Islam? Brother Hassan and Brother Sarfraz, 1 minute each.
Okay, I mean, honestly, what was the question?
To fight and kill.
For showing something? Well, according to my understanding, when you're being oppressed in your country, and like for example, if we're here and the schools or the governments tell us that we aren't allowed to pray or we're not allowed to practice our beliefs, then you are allowed to fight for your religion and your beliefs. And if that, I guess if that means killing someone, I don't think that that should be your first priority. Like first, oh, you're not gonna let me pray, so I'm just gonna kill you. But there should be some steps put into place first. But if everything else fails, I suppose.
That's not a fatwa.
I suppose that's the last case scenario.
That's his opinion.
Yeah, that's my.
This is a very important topic. Let me read something. This is jihad. This is not harab. Harab means a war. Jihad is not a war. It's a jihad fi sabilillah, which means it's basically a struggle for the sake of Allah, furthering a cause. So you might like to remember. Let me read you something from the UN General Assembly Charter. You are allowed to have 4 wards. One would be self-defense. Then you are allowed to have a use of force which is justified, like civil war. Then use of force as a reprisal, like tit for tat. And then the protection of nationals and property of a country abroad. So that is accepted. If you look at Rasulullah's life, starting from point 1, he barely ever attacked anything. The first war, which was Ghazwa Badr, he did not attack. They came to attack. Same thing happened later at Uhud, same thing happened at Battle of Trench. And in the end, when Rasulullah attacked Makkah, that was the time when actually they broke the treaty. And you have to understand that Rasulullah's army was growing. He never attacked any of the tribes next to Medina. He had peace treaty with all of them. So please forget about it that you're going to get a gun or a sword and try to convert everybody a Muslim. That's not what jihad means, and it is not meant to be done. There's not enough time, so I cannot go in detail, but I would certainly recommend one of the Muslims to discuss it in detail at khutbah. I'll just leave it here. So I'm leaving this question a little bit open.
My parents are very against early marriage, especially with someone out of our race. I think this person is an extremely good candidate as a future spouse. I've already tried to speak with my parents about the situation on an Islamic level, and the response I get is usually like, this person is not educated enough and will not be able to support you. We will find someone from whose culture is the same as ours. So what should I do? Brother Shakir and Brother Rami, 3 minutes each.
Yeah, we do get these questions sometimes from the parents, and the answer to them is they should not stand in the way if they believe if it's a Muslim brother, as she's saying, different culture or different background should not be a barrier, or especially if it's all about reasoning. I mean, the parents, of course, they know a lot more than their children, and they try to give them an advice. There's nothing Islamically that prevents her from marrying another Muslim of a different culture. I mean, in Islam, take all the differences. Now, of course, for the parents, there's some things that they look for, and they, what you have to understand is they want the best, always the best. Sometimes they're not right. So I think, dialogue and negotiation between the two parties always help. You just don't want to close your mind and treat your parents like your enemies. Because they really don't know, and that's why we many times get these questions, and we say them, well, there's no problem with that, but at the end of the day, they want the best for you, and that may not be the best for you, and you really need to open your mind, because you don't want to come a year later and blame them for your, because why did you allow me to marry this, this person who has no future? That's exactly what happened many times. It's like a trap. You go against your parents, because that's the one I love. I want to marry him or her. They give you their wisdom, and then you marry, and then you blame them. This is not fair. If you really want an opinion from the parents, then you need to give them a chance and listen to them, and have a dialogue about it. And inshallah, you'll arrive at the right. There's nothing haram about any of that. It's just a matter of finding the best way, inshallah.
Again, your guiding statement in choosing a husband or a wife is somebody with good manner and good religion. Al-khuluq wa deen. Those are a must. So, after that, it doesn't matter how they look, what language they speak, what's their race. But having said so, brothers and sisters, I want to bring 2 points. The first one is, if you marry somebody that has a culture that is close to your culture, you are more likely to be compatible and has less problem in life. This is important. So if you have a choice, then try to find the most compatible person and closer to your culture. But it doesn't mean that if you cross culture, you are wrong. Okay? That's not what I'm saying. But try your best to find somebody who's close to your culture, so you will lessen the chance of having problems in the future. But the most two things that you should not compromise is the manner and the religion. Okay? The other point that I want to raise is often kids come to their parents, insist on marrying somebody, is because they fall in the trap that sister talked about, the trap of dating. When you start talking to somebody, and then talking to somebody, and then talking to somebody, and then, suddenly you are so attracted to each other, you cannot be apart from each other. And then you come to your parent and say, I want to be with that person, I cannot imagine my life without that person. You put yourself in that position, so that's why you should, try not to establish a relationship, and unless, You want to get married? Fine. You know, you decide what's your parameters. You look for somebody that way, and you know, you might talk to her a few words. You know, as brother said, you know, in public, like, you know, I'm interested. Can I come and ask, you know, from your parents, or what's your position on this and that? But also the best way is to have a supervision. You know, take your family to her family and visit and say, oh, we want to sit and talk together, okay? So nobody would suspect. You also don't want to destroy your reputation or her reputation. Sometimes if people see you talk in the corner in public, they might say something bad about you or about her. And if this is your future wife, you don't want anybody to say anything bad about her. So, you know, in general, you can cross culture, but keep in mind all those points that I raised.
Why in Islam dogs are considered filthy and not allowed to be kept as pets? Sister Wafa and Brother Hassan, 1 minute each.
Okay. From what I know, you can have them as guard dogs. I just want to look at it just from a scientific standpoint when it comes to dogs and the ability to have a clean system or clean themselves. We know that their saliva is najas. And the reason, the way I look at it from a scientific standpoint, I could be 100% wrong, but how do they sweat? They don't. They don't have sweat glands throughout most of their body. So the only way that they can release any kind of impurities is somewhat, just a tiny bit through their paws and then through their breathing. That's the only way they can cool themselves down. So they don't have sweat glands throughout the rest of their body. And why do we sweat? So we purify our bodies. And taking a look at that and just knowing that the saliva is najas, it makes 100% sense that when they salivate, they're getting rid of those impurities from their bodies because they have no other way of doing it.
So if you have a farm or a big backyard and you know you want to keep your dog outside as a guard, that is allowed. But if you have the dog inside the house, then it's haram because, as sister said, you know, the saliva is najas, and then they're gonna spread that throughout your house.
So what
You know?
You can't pray. So they're not bad.
I have a Muslim friend who has been very close to me since childhood. She drinks and does drugs. I have tried to talk to her about these problems and she listens but never changes. Should I continue to be friends with her? Brother Shakir and Brother Rami, 2 minutes.
Well, certainly having a friend like you who really care about this friend and talk to her and talk, or to him and is it her? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, you don't want to shut someone, you know, if this is someone, if someone really, you know, you care about and you know, you want to give a good, Ladina Amuruna bil Ma'ruf, this is the Muslim. The Muslim always out there trying to advise, especially their loved ones. You don't just, you know, shut the door and distance yourself from someone because they have some, because we all make mistakes. I mean, there's no one here who doesn't make mistakes. So our job as a caring Muslims is to always advise each other. I always, you know, I would love, you know, for always my friend to point, again, my mistakes to me. If my friends will hide my mistakes and only show me the good things about me, I mean, they're hurting me. So really, I advise you to continue to advise them. Unless you feel that this friend of yours is gonna drag you into drugs and alcohol, if you feel that you are so weak that you could be the one who is being pulled, then absolutely, you wanna pull away. But if you feel that you are strong and you can control yourself and this is your friend and you really care about him and you want to advise him, by all means, please, you know, this is our job, is to always advise each other and we, you know, advise each other against these horrible things. And try to always do it before you get to that point, inshallah. And you can keep your best friends away before they get into this big problem. Because once they get there, they can't help it. It's addiction. It's a road without, you know, it's a dead end. You don't come back from these things.
How do we know that?
Well, actually, Brother Shakir said everything. It's basically, keep a relationship and present to them in a very, very loving, way that they feel that, because those people they know they're in trouble. They need love, they need attention, they need somebody to teach them how to get out of that trouble. But, you have to visit them at home, you have to, but you don't go to their parties, so you have to connect to them in a way that you protect yourself, okay? You don't go hang out with them in their party to advise them, because that way you are harming yourself, okay? So, actually, I advise the youth, to visit people in their houses, the friends who don't come to the masjid, and try to, advise them why you love Islam, why you come to the masjid, and all that, to encourage them to come. But, you don't go and visit them in the bar to do that.
I have a class that takes up the entire time for Maghrib prayer. It is a very important class, and if you miss a few minutes, you can be lost the entire lecture. Maghrib starts 5 minutes after my class starts. What should I do? Hassan and Sister Wafa, 2 minutes.
Well, if you can't miss a class, you can't miss the class. So, go to the class. I'm sure Allah will understand that your intention was that you want to pray, but you can't because you're going to be lost if you don't. Yeah.
Don't you have a friend in class who can give you the notes that you missed? Or can you leave a tape recorder there so that you can walk away and make your salah? I could see the view that was said, but at the same time too, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I honestly think that if you're pushing yourself to do the right thing, i.e. your salah, which is a fard, then I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you even more by making it easier to get that material, or by inshallah the professor was just doing this the whole time and it was nothing. So I think inshallah there's other ways of going about doing that to not miss out on your salah. Make your salah. Have a friend in class who can give you that information.
How do we know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not write the Quran himself? Brother Rami and Brother Sarfraz.
Well, Rasulullah ﷺ did not know how to read, did not know how to write. Mecca was a small community. There are only few people who could know, how to read or write. And definitely it was well known that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not know how to read or write. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ never went to any school, never learned the Bible or the Torah from any Jewish or Christian scholars. So all the information that was mentioned in the Quran, was not learned from somebody else. Plus, the language of the Quran. And imagine, brothers and sisters, that the Arab at that time were at the peak of producing beautiful poem and beautiful language. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran and challenged them to come with something like that, and they could not. So the language, of course, even for me, I cannot, understand some of that, and people who don't speak Arabic cannot understand that. But, I can spend 2 hours right now explaining to you the surah of, the smallest surah of Quran, and then you can appreciate how beautiful, how strong, and how meaningful the Quran is. So, and the Arab understood that right away, and they understand that it is a miracle. The Quran itself is a miracle, cannot be written by Muhammad. And then, for us now, there are so many scientific miracles in Islam. Also, we can spend hours talking about that. It is a proof that Quran was not written by a human, was written by revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, I want to say, remember,